Hello, and welcome to Arts Insights Live. My name is Nagam Weeby, president of Arts Consulting Group, and I'm glad we are here together today. Thank you for joining. For those who are joining Arts Insights Live for the first time, welcome. This is our bi-weekly series where we have candid, honest conversations about the trends, data, and ideas shaping the arts and culture field. In our sessions, we talk about leadership transitions, executive search, capital campaign, planning, and more. And we don't come here with all the answers, but we come here to stay in dialogue with this field we all care deeply about. For those of you who tune in regularly, thank you. Your engagement and your presence in these conversations mean a great deal to all of us here at ACG. Before we dive in, if you are watching live right now, drop a comment in the comments below and let us know where you're tuning in from. If you're with a specific organization, please put it in the comments. We always are curious to know who's here and from where. Also, feel free to share your thoughts and questions throughout the conversation today. So today is a very special edition of Arts Insight Live. We are here to launch something new, something that ACG has been building with real intention over the past several months. It's called Ascend by ACG, and it is a professional development program designed specifically for mid-careers arts and culture professionals who are ready for their next step in leadership. I could not be more excited to share this with you today. The program is shaped by what we are seeing across the field. There is a strong group of leaders stepping into greater responsibility and thinking more strategically about their roles, and Ascend is designed to support that next step. I'm glad to be joined today by Laura Zucker. Laura served as executive director of the Los Angeles County Arts Commission and one of the largest public arts agencies in the United States, where she advanced, led, and oversaw programs that shaped arts access, arts education, and cultural equity across one of the most diverse counties. She has mentored generations of art leaders, navigated the full complexity of public and institutional life, and she brings all of that knowledge and care to this work. She also served as director of the Masters in Arts Management program at Claremont Graduate University. She is now senior advisor at ACG. Can you tell my excitement? And I'm proud to say she has been a partner in designing and co-facilitating Ascend. And I should say for everyone, today's special is just a conversation between two people who collaborated on this program together. Laura, I'm genuinely honored to be building this with you, and I'm so grateful you said yes.
Well, I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. Before we start, I want to ask you, what made you say yes to collaborating on Ascend?
Well, you generously mentioned the many programs that I built over my tenure at the Arts Commission and elsewhere, and I'm very proud of all those accomplishments. But honestly, when I look back at what has been the most meaningful for me, what returns to feed me now at this point in my life are the incredible people that I got to work with and I saw move on to jobs all across the country heading fabulous organizations. Whenever I would lose a terrific person who would go to, like Aaron Harkey, who's head of Americans for the Arts now, I would always think of it as having a branch office in another place. And my relationships with all of those people have continued. And I realize that this is one of the things that has created real meaning in my life. So I'm honored and excited to be able to continue that practice with you.
Thank you. So
what made you decide to develop Ascend? What was the impetus for you?
Right. So the honest answer is that it came from what we're seeing every day in our work. So for those of you who don't know, Arts Consulting Group does executive search, leadership transitions, services, but also strategic planning and revenue enhancement and all that. But with executive search, I mean, ACG sits between organizations seeking leadership and professionals ready to step up. And what kept surfacing was a gap. Like sometimes there are capable, dedicated people who are close or to ready for senior leadership, but hadn't had access to the kind of structured thinking that would help them close that last mile. So we wanted to build something cumulative, something that compounds over 12 weeks, 6 sessions bi-weekly, something that's not won't add a lot of pressure, but can be fitted in the schedule of folks. And we also have heard it from many of our clients and other projects, other than executive search, that something is needed for professional development for mid-managers that is arts and culture, that's not general. And so that's how Ascend came to be. And as a team, like we just kept thinking about it internally, and we're like, okay, this is it. Let's do it based on what we're witnessing, what we're hearing. Now, on your side, Laura, you've spent decades at the intersection of arts leadership, public sector work, and you've had so many experiences with arts administrators during different levels of their career. What do you think is missing on how the field currently develops mid-career leaders?
Well, I think the biggest transition I ever went through, and I see this all the time, is from somebody who created and ran projects to somebody who ran people who ran projects. And there is a real deficit in helping people, I think, through that transition. Because once you make that transition, actually, it gets easier and easier, because then you just have multiple layers, right, of people who are running projects. But building those teams and managing them is a really different set of skills, as well as working with and managing a board of directors. These are soft skills, and I've never understood why they call them soft skills, because they're the hardest skills.
Yeah.
They're the hardest, I think, for people to really assimilate and integrate into their work as they mature and move up a ladder. So this series is very exciting to me because that's what it's focusing on.
Definitely. And yeah, I don't know why they called it soft. It's hard.
Yeah. And speaking of which, so you became president of Arts Consulting Group just 6 months ago. So you've recently lived the transition from
Yeah.
managing up to being responsible for the whole shebang. So what would you tell others facing that?
I mean, I think I'll tell others, but also like I tell myself every day, because it can be tough, is that the skills that got you here are real and they matter. But the frame shifts, as you said, like when you step into a role with a full organization responsibility, you're no longer accountable just for your lane or your projects, you're accountable for the whole. And that requires thinking differently about governance, about how decisions ripple out, how to hold the full picture while staying connected to what your team needs day to day. So, I mean, for me, the most important shift was learning to lead from clarity rather than from urgency. And talking about soft and hard, this is a hard thing and something that I'm still learning. It's not perfect yet, but I've realized that like the most important thinking is what we do before the decision, the brainstorming and that thinking. And when we're operating from urgency, sometimes it's not as clear. So that has been my biggest learning the past 6 months.
Interesting.
What about you? If you could go back and give your mid-career self one piece of advice, or what was the biggest learning for you then, what would it be?
I think from this vantage point, it's understanding, which I wish I had then, that it's the body of work, that everybody makes mistakes. We all have clothes hanging in the back of the closet that we should not have bought. But that shouldn't keep you from taking risk. That risk is part of what makes our field interesting and exciting. And it's intrinsic in a way in the nonprofit model. We have the freedom to do that. You know, I often think now about how if you are a fabulous baseball player and you're batting 300, 350, that's incredible, but that actually means you're only hitting the ball 3 out of 10 times. So to be less afraid of making a mistake, less afraid of taking risk, and understanding that there's a long arc here and it's the body of your work. That's
Right.
kind of what I would tell myself.
Right. I can relate a lot about the less afraid and risking, but also like being okay with not being perfect. Dr. Brene Brown, I don't know if she's a researcher that did studies about shame, but she has this quote, "I'm imperfect and enough." And I think as leaders, people remembering that and going through that, and it's okay. Like there's learning curve, but it's okay. So before I move this back to Ascend, of course, for those of you who are tuning in, if you have any questions about Ascend or any other questions, feel free to put them in the comments, and we'll try to get to that if time allows. But so we both spoke about our experiences. What about when you think about the people Ascend is designed for? The mid managers or the people who are ready for that next step or the senior ready for or thinking about senior leadership, what's the most important thing they need right now that a traditional conference doesn't offer and maybe Ascend is offering?
Well, I think Ascend can amplify something that a traditional so we all know that sometimes the best things that happen at a traditional conference are the things that happen in the corridors, right?
Mhm.
The informal conversations that people have with each other. But conferences tend to be extremely discipline specific, right? You're connecting with people who are already living in your silo, so to speak. And so this is a problem in general, I think, that we're having right now is just having views reflected back at us all the time. And I think Ascends the fact that it's national, but it's also multidisciplinary, that people can select in, um, and that they will have an opportunity to have these kind of conversations, not only with us, but with each other, and expand their network is going to be a huge benefit.
Definitely. And we also have the guest practitioners. We'll talk about that in a second, but that's also another thing.
So tell us all what you've learned from being involved in executive searches for the past 5 years, and how that information informed the selection of the session topics and how we're going to focus that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the executive search learnings directly shaped Ascent's design. And that what I've learned from the executive search is that the gap between a strong candidate and the right candidate almost never comes down to a specific competence or a specific skill. It comes down to clarity, like the clarity about how, or articulating even how they lead, how they make decisions, how they understand the organization they're entering and what it needs from them right now. Whether search committees or hiring managers, they're not just looking for someone who can do the job. I mean, of course, they're looking for that, but also they're looking for someone who can articulate why they are the right person for this specific institution at this specific moment. So the sessions and how we built them, and even the design of Ascent, is built in part to help professionals develop that clarity before they even need it.
And part of that clarity, too, right, is every time a candidate walks into the room, they may not be thinking or realizing that the people interviewing them want them to be the
Mhm.
answer to their challenge. They're actually rooting for them. Um, and they can step into a place where they can help fulfill expectations.
Right. Right. You started touching on that, but I got a question right now from and shout out to the marketing team behind the scenes that are sending me questions. But what I mean, you started talking about that in comparison to conferences. But what do you think Ascend offer that participants won't find anywhere else?
Well, you know, when you go to graduate school, you learn how to read a balance sheet, but it doesn't really tell you how to explain it to your board and present those challenges that the financial challenges that the organization is facing as a team sport,
Mhm.
and one that everyone has to deal with. This is also going to be a contained cohort. It's not a massive situation the way a conference is. And it's going to be able to interact with some incredible leaders from the field one-on-one.
Right.
And one of the things that I thought was amazing in the way that you designed this was the fact that it includes one-on-one coaching sessions.
Right. Right.
You
And
do not get that at a conference.
yeah. So yeah, and let me talk a little bit about that. So that's directly from the search, from our learnings from the search practice. So with the program, there's two coaching with me or a staff from ACG, especially people who work directly in searches, to go over the resume, but also to go over the verbal introduction of who you are. We see that a lot, especially in finalists rounds. Usually the finalist candidates meet with the staff or meet with key constituents or the board or the search committee. And there's always time to introduce yourself, and you want to hit all the points that are valid for the search, but also you don't want to tell the whole story of your life because you have limited time. And how do you, it's a lot like to do in 3 to 5 minutes. So the coaching session would include going over that and giving coaching and feedback based on what we've learned that worked, based on all the searches we have. Awesome. Well, if you want to say it in one line, or two, okay. What's one thing or two things you hope participants leave Ascend knowing about themselves that they didn't walk in knowing?
I think one of the hardest things for me was figuring out how to be professional, but still authentically me.
Mm-hmm.
How do you combine those aspects so you don't feel like you're just playing a role and you can be who you are, but it's also appropriate to helping you get the job done that needs to get done? Um, that's a space that I've seen people grow into. Um, and it's really exciting, I think, when you get to experience someone who's actually in that space, because
Mm-hmm.
it makes you realize that you don't need to leave who you are behind to do a fantastic job.
Right. And that both exist at the same time. We have, I mean, I see that a lot across, just to your point, that it's either or, either or. You either have to be this or that. You have to be visionary or kind. You have to be like, I'm being extreme right now, but it's like actually about how to be both. How can you hold both and alternate with whatever is needed at any specific time? Another place where I see that also, the personality, like when you take personality tests and there's like different boxes where if you're dominant or an influencer, and this tells you just the default of who you were because of how you grew up. But a lot of times people put themselves in boxes where I'm this or I'm that, and it's like the skill is to how to be able to be all, how to move from an influencer to a supporter to a leader, like how to have both depending on the time and need.
You know, those of us in this field in arts administration, we're super lucky
Hmm.
because we've been able to align our personal mission very often, what we deeply care about,
Right.
um, with the organizational mission. And when we find that place where we can connect those, there's a real sense of fulfillment,
Hmm.
um, that you just can't find anywhere else, I think.
I agree. Before we wrap, I want to give a special shout out to the guest practitioners who are joining us across the 6 Ascend sessions. So, as I said, it's a 12 weeks cohort, but we're going to have bi weekly sessions. They're going to be on Thursdays, and there's 6 sessions, and every session is going to have a guest practitioner. So I'm excited about all those guest practitioners that said yes to being part of this Ascend cohort. We have Deborah Rutter, the former president of the Kennedy Center and currently the vice provost for the arts at Duke University, as well as ACG senior advisors Mario Garcia Durham, former president and CEO of the Association of Performing Arts Professionals, APAP. Emil Kang, the former program director for arts and culture at the Mellon Foundation and currently an entrepreneur in residence at Yale Cultural Innovation Lab. And Howell Sims, former CEO of Musica Viva Australia. And last but not least, ACG's executive search practice leader, Josiane Roche. So a huge shout out to all of them if they're tuning in, but if they see this later, and we're so excited to have them. These are people who have lived the decisions that our participants are preparing to make, and that's the room the participants are going to be walking into. Anything you want to add about the practitioner joining us?
Well, the first session is Deborah Rutter.
Yes.
Talk about being in the eye of the storm, right? And having invested everything that she did into moving the Kennedy Center to where it was until last year, and then to have to leave in that way. I think her perspective is going to be amazing.
Yes. Yes. Each one of them have a unique perspective. Like they all have been there, but they're going to bring different lenses and different real examples. Laura and I were chatting about AI before we started this live, and that's something AI can't duplicate because it's the lived experiences of those guest practitioners. I mean, the sessions will have a specific title and framing in a way, but the guest practitioners are just going to share raw, like it's not about PowerPoints and theories. It's just like their raw experience and learnings, and have those conversations with the participants in a way.
And I just want to add to that, as we all know, AI can scrape the web and tell you what's most logically, based on what it already knows, but it's not yet able to see around corners.
Mm-hmm.
It's not able to predict in any way, shape, or form, if I take this action, this is what is most likely to happen. That comes with experience.
Right. Before we this is the last question and then we'll wrap. What are you most looking forward to as this first cohort comes together?
I'm really looking forward to working with you because I think we bring two interestingly different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also really want to hear from the people who are in the cohort about what they need, about what they're seeing. I want to make sure, this is not all predetermined. It's
Mm-hmm.
meant to be responsive
Right.
to the real challenges that people are facing. And I hope that I learn from that.
Yeah. No, likewise, for me, likewise, I'm excited to work with you, but I'm excited also to be in the space with all those amazing guest practitioners that are going to join, and learning from each other, whether the participants, the guest practitioners, and us, to what's coming up in the room. And as you said, it's a responsive process, iterative process. So based on what's coming up, there can be, the session title is the same, but how we're designing the next session is built on what we've learned as a cohort altogether in the session before. So I'm really excited and and specifically this first cohort. And I hope everybody who joins that cohort leaves with more clarity about their own leadership, but also more clarity about the field and general frameworks that help them be successful in a way. Any last thoughts about Ascend?
No, I'm just I'm just really excited. And thank you again for collaborating with me on this.
Of course. Thank you for saying yes. So for all of you who are tuning in or who are watching this later, Ascend by ACG is a focused cohort-based experience over 12 weeks, bi-weekly, 6 sessions, intentionally structured, grounded in what we are seeing across the field and shaped by the work we do every day with organizations and leadership teams. If this feels relevant to where you are in your career, or if you know somebody that might be a great participant for this, we encourage you to take a closer look. Applications are open now. The link will be posted in the comment. As I said, the process is short. We are being thoughtful about building a strong and engaged cohort. The application will close on April 20th, so we can finalize the cohort and start together on May 28th. We would welcome your interest, and we look forward to the conversation ahead. Thank you again, Laura, for everything you've brought to this program and for being here with me on Arts Insights Live today. For everybody who's watching, we'll be back soon with more Arts Insights Live conversations. Be sure to follow ACG on LinkedIn for updates. Thank you again. Thank you, Laura. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. See you next time.